Today, on the latest of the Underworld Quebec news in Canada.
Le restaurant du Myland à Montréal a été ciblé par un cocktail molotov très tôt ce matin. Les dommages sont importants. Ce qu'il y a d'encore plus préoccupant, Marie-Lise, c'est que des locataires des étages supérieurs ont été évacués.
Oui, à peu près 6-7 personnes qui ont dû être évacuées. Jean-François, on se trouve en ce moment sur la rue Bernard, tout près de l'avenue Esplanade. Et c'est le restaurant Midi avec moi qui a été touché par un objet incendiaire. Souvent, lorsqu'on vous parle le matin de cocktails Molotov qui visent des commerces ou des restaurants, ça a lieu la nuit alors que les lieux sont inoccupés. C'est le cas encore une fois cette fois-ci. Les flammes ont débuté vers 3h45. Mais ce qu'il y a d'un peu différent et ce qu'il y a de plus préoccupant, c'est qu'il y a des locataires qui résident au 2 et 3e étage. Ils ont dû être évacués, surtout en raison de la fumée. Heureusement, le travail des pompiers a permis de contenir les flammes au 1er étage. Mais quand même, on comprend que pour les locataires, ça a dû être un réveil assez brutal, tout comme les propriétaires aussi. Selon les versions préliminaires de témoins rencontrés, au moins un suspect aurait été vu en train de lancer un cocktail Molotov dans le commerce en question, mais l'enquête en est à ses tout débuts. Donc, le travail des policiers au cours des prochaines heures, ce sera de déterminer exactement la cause, les circonstances entourant cet incendie criminel. Il y a des vidéos de surveillance qui pourront être visionnées et également les propriétaires rencontrés, à savoir est-ce qu'ils ont reçu des menaces au cours des dernières semaines qui pourraient peut-être expliquer cet incendie criminel.
Donc, la série noire de ces incendies criminels presque quotidiens, ça se poursuit dans la région de Montréal. Merci, Marie-Lise.
Merci, Marie-Lise. Mount Real. You don't capture that nickname and capture that audience simply by speech. One must bring action to reality. And it's been our reality for the past few months. If we zone into the province, there's been fires all over this city. For the Montreal Mafia, you got our attention. Double hitting the same spot twice, targeting high cash businesses. Did you notice that they never hit a big chain? If only all the stores were corporate, that would drop the whole fires to zero. Perhaps that's what it will take. I could tell you for certain, these guys are not playing. They are not even trying to hide it. Why hit the same store twice, and 2 different stores at that? Why when you're under the eye? The RCMP, Sûreté du Québec, and the Police of Montreal. You're just begging for attention. And at the very least, you're trying to send a message. Remember, the city's been through a mafia war. Then that means there are 2 sides. There are many questions such as, was one fire in retaliation to another one? Or rather, is it one group trying to assert its dominance throughout the city and make it well known? We are back. Ain't no one doing business without our say-so. Remember, they were fractioned, bickering amongst each other, and like a corporation trying to exercise its dominance, there is a period of growth, competition, but more importantly, my friends, consolidation. I wonder if the criminal underworld is experiencing just that. Are there a few key players finally emerging to the top? And are they the ones who are running this campaign? So, who are they? That's your question. Well, folks, I don't know any of these people. I read the news for you. And I can certainly make some observations. For one, Leonardo Rizzuto. Note, he used to be a lawyer. In fact, it was hard for him to become one. Who knows if his father had to grease some wheels. But one thing's for sure, in 2014 and 15, he was arrested on a drug case. As you don't make someone a lawyer if you think he's a criminal, or even the fact that his presence might practically be an insult to justice. However, he did become one ultimately, and so that test fails. But what about after he got caught? That's the million-dollar question. We can all but be sure that he was barred from practicing in the bar. And so you know where I'm going with this. A man needs to earn a living. If you remove his legal means, then what do you think he will do? Is Leonardo Rizzuto fulfilling the ultimate fantasy of the Godfather? One has to be very blind or deaf not to appreciate the context. The son of a godfather sent to school, never to touch this business. Surely his father wanted him to be part of something different, and like the movie, the circumstances turned deadly. The godfather's son is dead, the grandson's dead, he's the only one left to live. And his right-hand man with whom he grew up with, Solicito, clearly has been involved since Leonardo was in school. And so you can't really blame me for thinking that perhaps Leonardo's becoming a Corleone in real life. And if this is all part of his grandstanding, let's be real, this is like a freaking movie. But we don't know that yet, as time will tell. Who better to do it, my friend, than the crafty one? In the middle of the biker war, there were names that became legends. They gained all this infamy, but they died for nothing, it seems. Because when your enemy is my friend, imagine having participated in a war that cost you your friend's life, and at the end of that war, the people who killed him join your team now. Was it all worth it when your friends are no longer here to enjoy the fruits of their labor? The Rock Machine and the Hells Angels went at it for almost a decade, and going to war was the idea of its engineers, if you will. You know them already, the most famous one, Boucher. But there was another man that was not spoken of that much, yet he probably deserves even more credit. He's the man who convinced Boucher to join him. They were both members of the SS Merciless Riders, Normand BIFF
Hamel.
Biff is a nickname often given in the biker world. It's a biker's slang, and if there were ever a prototypical biker-looking fella, there would be none other than Biff himself. And as one of the figureheads of this biker war, Biff was a target. At the time, the orders from the top, which really meant Boucher and his friend, a couple of money-hungry sociopaths, had decided who shall live and who should die. They were placing bounties on people's lives, and they were subcontracting them to their underling gangs. They showed their enemies no mercy. Imagine having nothing to do with the Hells Angels, and one day suddenly 2 big goons show up and they ask you for your cell phone, or else everything you had built handed over. And if you didn't comply and that beating didn't send you the message, these pillars of the community would by de facto would receive a bill which they would promptly pay to liquidate your life. They say power has the means to make a man drunk, full of himself, not to see clearly that perhaps he had not only placed a bounty on others but to himself as well. And the cherry on top is your enemies won't show you any mercy at all when you beg for it. Well, let me tell you, on a cold Canadian winter in April of 2000, Normand BIFF Hamel was 44 years old and he thought that he had the world at his feet. But if you're sitting at the throne, you should already know that you're always gonna be a target. One thing that I've noticed in the underworld, by the savagery you treat others, it will come back to you, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on who you ask, because they didn't give a damn that his wife and his child was with him, and the shooters ambushed him, and he asked them, mercy. Yes, where was the mercy on that day? When he left that office of that pediatrician, one biker who decided that he didn't want to be a biker anymore. And perhaps that man knew that biking in this day and era has very little to do with a motorcycle. Stéphane Baudry knew the shooter, a rock machine, an arch nemesis of the
Hells Angels.
Tony Duguay. Well, Stéphane says that big bad biker, Biff Hamel, one of the architects of the biker war. And imagine, it couldn't have been easy. He had to turn his back on old friends, basically saying to himself, screw it all, they can die. But when it came to him on that April, pitié, pitié. And I ask people like him, where was your mercy? Okay, so there's an update on that story. Now, remember, in our previous video, we spoke about a crooked cop, Benoit Roberge. What does he have to do with Tony Duguay? Well, remember, we live in Canada land. Need I remind you in Quebec that when you're part of a biker war where you have murdered people, you can always find a way to sue the government and get paid for your misdeeds. All you have to do is reverse the scenario and blame it all on the judge and the courtroom. Blame it on the investigators. Find any way you can become a multi-millionaire that way. Well, Tony Duguay says that Baudry's statement was fraught with error because he was under undue pressure from Benoit Roberge. And given Benoit Roberge accepted money for his retirement through the Hells Angels, Tony Duguay wants you and I to pay him his retirement. Amazing. The mathematics you can pull off if you have money in court. All you need is a straw to grasp at. Not only that, you can join the Hells Angels too. Let's not kid ourselves. Biff Hamel was a high-value target, and one organization was willing to pay the high dollars. I have my doubts about that adjustment, but to add insult to injury, he wants to get paid for this. Tony, it seems like you got away with murder. Do you really need to rub it in our faces too? When it's probably not even the first one that you never got caught for. You were not part of this greatest biker war in Canadian history and made your way to the top in infamy without pulling triggers while you were all under attack. You must have done something, friend. And so it's one thing to get out of this mess, but it's another to require $14 million. This is another case of you caught me, but you shouldn't have caught me. I'm guilty as sin, but I'm not. Now, give me my money. Look, all I'm saying is, why the millions, buddy?